lab, I think.
Give me one sec. Evelyn, do we know if everybody else is coming?
Oh,
Yes, they should be. I haven't received word that they are not attending.
Okay, thank you. It's almost 5:30.
okay.
We can give them a couple minutes if you'd like.
Mhm.
Why isn't everyone else in this bright blue? Brian and I had that worked out.
We figured it out.
We went
It worked
darker.
well.
All right. I'm at home. I could go change. Joel, you look so serious.
Joelle.
Part of my job. I have to be serious.
Sometime.
There we go. Now I'm a journalist.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey,
Hello, Mayor Middleton.
how's everyone?
Good.
Great.
Oh,
It's Naomi and Mark
Jim?
and Jim.
Mhm.
Linda, did I see you at the,
You did.
I thought so.
You did. I thought it was really well done. We were just talking about it.
I was
Well done.
very pleased.
How many people do
you-
you think were there?
Oh, gosh.
50?
That's 50 would be the number I'd start with. I'm not,
Yeah, I liked it. I thought, and it's too fast for me to think through my priorities. I have to think longer. So I wasn't very helpful in that regard.
I don't.
Evelyn, Justin is in the waiting room, as is finance department.
Mhm. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Okay,
Are we ready?
ready?
Just give me a couple more minutes. We're having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
It's not working. Mhm.
Mr. Chair, I'm here to observe, and if there are any questions that I can help answer, but that's all. So wherever I belong in terms of on screen, off screen, up to you.
Okay, 2 minutes for technical check.
Who are we missing from the commission?
Commissioner Marshall.
Marshall.
I think we're just waiting a couple minutes for technical. Commissioner Marshall is now in the waiting room.
can I ask, since we haven't started, the gentleman, Chris, do we know you? Have we met?
No, oops. I don't think we have. So I am just started about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I am the Assistant Director of Finance. I report directly to Nancy.
Oh,
Welcome.
Well,
Thank you.
Welcome.
nice to meet
Thank you. Happy to be here for sure.
Do we have Nancy tonight or no Nancy?
I don't think so.
Oh,
we've got Chris.
Yeah, you don't want him to feel bad, Jim.
no.
Nice work. Nice work.
We love your boss, Chris. She's good to us.
Great. Yeah, she's awesome.
Commissioner Marshall is in the waiting room.
Okay, you may begin. I apologize.
Hey, Commissioner Marshall's in the waiting room. Okay, there he is. Okay, it is 5:35 and I am calling the meeting to order. Commissioner Federer, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay. I pledge allegiance
Flag.
To the flag
of the United States. Oh,
Which it stands.
Which it stands,
stands one
Indivisible, with liberty.
and justice for all.
For all.
Thank you.
Hey, I think that was even worse than the last time.
Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Robin,
Present.
Commissioner Marshall,
Here.
Commissioner Craig,
Here.
Commissioner Gassan,
Here.
Commissioner Footer,
here.
Vice Chairperson Soto.
Here.
And Chairperson Bernstein.
Here.
Thank you.
And now we move to the acceptance of the agenda. The Measure J Commission will discuss the order of the agenda and may amend the order, add items, and may remove items from the agenda for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bring up an urgency request at this time to be added to the agenda in regard to a statement that was made at the city council meeting last Thursday that I think that we need to discuss and address. I'm asking that we vote on that to add it to new business.
This was after the agenda was published.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. The reason that I was told that I should bring it up in this manner is because the agenda was published on Thursday and the meeting was on Thursday evening of the council. So it was after the agenda was put together or posted, and I was told this is the proper procedure to do it. It calls for a 2/3 vote.
Okay, so Commissioner Craig wants to add an agenda item in response to a comment made at Thursday night city council meeting as an emergency agenda item. Do we go straight to the vote, the roll call vote, Evelyn? You're on mute.
We'll have to determine what item number this will be, whether it will be item number 2A or 2C. And I'll prepare a roll call vote. And as Commissioner Craig mentioned, it has to be a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
And I was also told, I'm sorry, Evelyn, that it would be 2C unless it was chosen to be sooner.
Yes.
I would suggest that I don't know how long we have our mayor and present and city council. I know they can't be here for the whole meeting. So I suggest we move it up to 2A. So do we need a roll call vote to move it up to emergency agenda item up to 2A?
So the motion was made by Commissioner Craig, the second by Chair Bernstein. Is that right?
Did somebody else want to second it?
I'll make the second, Naomi Soto.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Robin,
In favor, yes.
Commissioner Footer,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Robin,
Yes, in favor.
Commissioner Craig,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Soto,
Yes.
Chairperson Bernstein,
Yes.
unanimously approved.
Okay. Any other amendments or changes to the agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I
Okay.
second it.
Favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay. We now move to the approval of the minutes. We have the approval of the meeting minutes of January 20th, 2022 of the Measure J Oversight Commission. I do have one change that I wanted to correct. When we asked the library to present, it was not just on their community initiated project. We asked, since we had previously discussed other library agenda items, we asked them to present the general plans for the library. Any other changes to the minutes? So I would move that we approve the minutes as amended.
A motion?
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes are assigned for each speaker. If you have not signed up previously and are in an attendee in the waiting room, please use your raise hand on the Zoom under on the bottom of the screen, and Evelyn will call on you. Evelyn, do you want to start with the first public comment?
Yes. Our first speaker is Mr. Kurt Larson, and I'll admit him now.
And as you speak, you'll be admitted to the regular room.
Mr. Larson, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes. You may begin.
Again, my name is Kurt Larson. I'm on the Los Compadres Neighborhood Organization Board of Directors. It's the Board of Directors that submitted an application for your consideration for funds for a lighted crosswalks at Farrell and Sonora and El Cielo and Sonora. Sonora runs east-west. It connects, it's sort of a spine for our neighborhood that connects our neighborhood together. Approximately half live north of Sonora, half south. So we all use that to drive, walk, or bike to connect to other neighborhoods in Palm Springs or to the east side of the Los Compadres neighborhood. The east side of Los Compadres is cut off from El Cielo, so you need to cross El Cielo to get to that part. As you know, both Farrell and El Cielo are about 5 lanes wide. It's bike paths, parking, shoulder parking, 2 lanes of traffic, and a turn lane. So when residents want to cross either of those roads, it can be dangerous. At our annual meeting, it constantly comes up from our neighbors about the dangers of crossing either of those roads to go from one neighborhood to the other or to the other side of the Los Compadres Neighborhood Organization. Posted it's 45 miles an hour, but we've seen traffic go faster and we've seen traffic increasing as well. So one way with the crosswalks, what we'd like to do is unify the neighborhood to make it safer for people to cross. It's not a stop sign. It will only be used when someone wants to cross the road. The engineering department has, and rightfully so, deemed this not necessary or relevant for a stop sign, and we don't want a stop sign. But what we want is something more visible. So when someone is crossing the road with traffic, it's much safer for them and they're seen, especially at night. Farrell has that curve. So if you're traveling southbound, you come around a curve, and if someone is crossing Sonora at Farrell, traffic comes up very fast, and many people have talked about near misses. We want this to be a safer way for residents, children, and seniors to safely cross these busy, wide roads. We want this to be preventative versus waiting to be reactionary after a probable accident that could cause serious injury or worse. So as the Los Compadres Board of Directors, we appreciate your consideration of our request for this grant. And I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. The next public
Okay,
speaker.
and the next speaker is Mr. Matthew Lesniak, and I'll admit him now. Actually, I don't see him on. I will move on to Mr. Tim Giuliani. Mr. Giuliani, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. You may begin.
Okay, my name is Tim Giuliani. I want to speak to you in regards to our community initiated project for the Demuth Dog Park in response to 2 issues that came up at your last meeting. One, Commissioner Soto, I believe, recalled that Measure J funding for Demuth Park, and she recalled that there was funding for Demuth Park and wanted to clarify that she is correct that $202,000 was awarded about a year ago, but this was in conjunction with Quimby Act funds to respond to the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant request for 50% local funds match for continued consideration of the grant funding of the $3.6 million Demuth Dog Park construction by the National Park Service. At last word, this was subject to the state's completion of the federal environmental cultural study of the project site, to which the Park and Recreation Department was supposed to follow up on. But at this point in time, it seems that the city most likely is not going to receive these funds. So my question that perhaps someone can answer later in your meeting is what happens to this $202,000 if it's not going to be used for its initial intended purpose? And secondly, regarding our request for the $250,000, we met in the fall on site with the city manager and, city engineer and with the director of maintenance and facilities to come up with the approximate dollar amount needed to make this a safe and desirable park with a shade structure, new ground cover, and improved fencing and aesthetics. It was pointed out that a comparable shade structure adjacent at the ball field cost approximately $100,000, and appropriate ground cover would cost another $100,000, and that left $50,000 for an improved fence line with shade trees and additional plants to improve the overall cohesiveness and enhance the aesthetics with the rest of Demuth Park. So I just wanted to clarify, if I could, how we came up with that dollar for your request. In light of the recent allegations against the commission, I hope they don't delay proceedings on proposal selections for city council to approve, as I believe you're all doing an excellent job sifting through the 59 proposals, and wish you all continued success at doing just that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Debbie Miller, and I'll admit her now. Ms. Miller, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you may begin.
Thank you for hosting the meeting tonight. I'm here as more of as a visitor, but my father, Rick Supple, and stepmom, Rosine Supple. I'm really here for them. My father passed away, longtime resident in Palm Springs in May, and they are founders of the Palm Springs Cultural Center, and I serve on the board now. And I've watched the center grow over the years, going back to 2007 when they were founded. It's been a vision of my dad and of Rosine to make the Camelot Theater a community theater for the whole city of Palm Springs. And it has been utilized since 2007 by all across the valley, different events. In fact, I've enjoyed visiting Palm Springs every year and watching the growth of the cultural center to where now we have as many as 250,000 people that use the center during the year, and 100 organizations on average that use the cultural center each and every month. We have a thriving farmers market, film festivals that we host, musical groups, all kinds of activities. And recently we submitted a proposal to build a commercial sewer line that would connect to the main city line. And this would be in support of a project where we're renovating one of the theaters, Theater 3, into a community live theater. And there's quite a demand for this now in the community of theatrical groups that want a small theater, which this is 135 seats for one-act plays, and other small groups, string quartets, and smaller performances could be in this theater. Well, right now, the Desert Ensemble has a has a show going on this weekend. And if they're going to change their actors, their actresses, they've got to go out in the alley and go to an outhouse. And, it's just tough, with the wind, climate, for people to going in and out of the building to do this kind of a thing to act. So what we're hoping now is to have this renovation that would build restrooms, changing rooms, also some supply, office storage area. And this would be behind Theater 1. And this sewage line that we're asking for the city to support will make this all possible. If we don't have the pipe, we can't have the project. And it's a big project to do this renovation. So I'm strongly in support of the $200,000 ask by the Palm Springs Cultural Center. And I would really be grateful if you all could consider it and fully fund it. And again, this was a real vision of my dad's and my stepmom's, that this community theater serviced the city of Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley for the arts and for culture. And I would be very grateful if you all would, take a close look at this and put it up there for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Speaker. And I just, sometimes with Zoom, it is hard to interrupt, but if you go over 3 minutes, Evelyn will try and let you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mary Barcelo, and I'll admit her now. Mary, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may begin.
Okay, pickleball, pickleball, pickleball. I'm a USA Pickleball Ambassador and instructor for Palm Springs and Palm Desert. I run tournaments, and I'm here representing David Feltman and myself. And we would like to thank you for considering the proposal to add more pickleball courts. It sounds like pickleball courts will be in a group of proposals for further consideration. When it comes time for engineering to do a deep dive, we are available to provide input to ensure there is a good set of specs to investigate for siting and pricing. We just really know that it would be great to have more courts before nationals next year. This sport is an obsession in the Coachella Valley, and it helps fitness for seniors, families, kids. I had 160 players at my round robin last Sunday, and there were ages from 10 to 80. And it's just something positive we need right now in our community. And I think it's really important, if we have any money, to put in more courts to try to offer things to do positively and healthy in the pandemic crisis that people can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Max Deirdo, and I'll admit him now. Max, can you hear us? Mr. Deirdo, can you hear us?
He's on mute.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may begin.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Just like Mary said, pickleball. I love sport. I play pickleball every day. I love Demuth Park very much. And I am glad that David has sent a proposal, and I really hope you consider it. You have no idea how many residents and visitors come to Palm Springs and play this sport. It is just like Mary said, it's an obsession, and it's a fun social sport that I'm glad I discovered. And there are so many players here that come to Palm Springs, and all they do is play pickleball. We have to wait 25 minutes sometimes after each game.
He removed himself or? Oh.
Who? Did I remove myself? Sorry. I thought I was still talking.
You are back in.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sure how much you heard, but I think my 2 minutes is almost over. But I'm advocating for more pickleball courts. It's really difficult to play pickleball nowadays because of the high winter season. We really do need pickleball courts, and I really hope you consider the proposal. And I would love for more people to come visit our beautiful city and play pickleball and get to know everyone from our residents to visitors, and all to really come play. So I really hope that we don't have to wait 25 minutes. And then obviously, I hope also there are other parks and not just Demuth Park, because when we have people that come visit, and it's kind of embarrassing to take them also to Demuth Park because it smells all the time because the wastewater, the sewage system, and it smells so bad sometimes that it's kind of embarrassing to our visitors. I hope consider finding a solution to that. And really, that's it. I want to thank so much.
Do we have any other speakers?
That concludes our public comment for tonight.
Okay. I mentioned last year, we had asked then Mayor Holstage to attend our meeting, and I think she was unavailable, and Mayor Pro Tem was unavailable, so Councilman Coors attended. And then mentioned that they would try and get here every 3 or 4 months. So I'm very appreciative that they have shown. I wanted to ask Mayor Middleton if you wanted to say anything or just observe.
Thank you, Chair Bernstein. And yes, I do have some comments. I think they're needed. Simply to set the record, since last Thursday evening, I have consulted with Councilmember Coors, since I knew he was the last individual from City Council to be involved with a meeting of the Measure J Commission, and I've also consulted with the City Manager. There will be subsequent meetings that will involve the balance of the council. I've also reached out to individuals that were a part of the original Measure J Commission. I've not completed the reach out that I'm going to make with those individuals, but one of the individuals I spoke to is Commissioner Marshall, who's a commissioner now and was in fact a commissioner at the time of the original Measure J Commission. First, I want to say thank you to each and every member of the Measure J Commission for your integrity, your commitment to our city, and for the contributions that you make to this commission, and have so many of you made to other commissions in the past. It is incredibly important work, and folks speak of city council work being thankless. That's occasionally true. The work of commissioners being thankless is almost always true. Thank you. I have the greatest respect for each and every one of you. And as we all know, because many of you are good friends, from time to time we've disagreed on this issue or that issue going forward, but that's what makes our city so strong. I'm really appreciative that I had an opportunity to listen to the public comments that came in this evening, because they reminded me so clearly of the public comments that came into the Measure J Commission back when the Measure J Commission first got started. And frankly, at that time, I was one of those individuals representing neighborhoods and representing 1PS who was arguing for more crosswalks, for lighted crosswalks, for contributions to community centers, for advancements of our dog parks, and for all of the kinds of things that you heard about this evening. I must admit, though, back when I was doing this in 2015 and 16, issues around pickleball wasn't quite what it has become in the last few years, but all of this is individuals within our neighborhoods and our community reaching out for things that will make a difference in the quality of life in our neighborhoods and in our community. And there are, if I got the numbers correct, 50 different projects that are before you. When the original Measure J Commission got started, I remember they were close to 300 different projects. And the origin of the community projects and the $1 million devoted to that was that there were a number of us, myself included, who were advocating on behalf of community projects and felt that they were getting lost in the magnitude of so many other major projects that we were losing track of one of the reasons why so many individuals voted for Measure J in the first place. They wanted to see stoplights, stop signs. They wanted to see gaps in sidewalks completed. They wanted to see it to be safer to walk our streets. Those were the kinds of things we were advocating for. And that is how the community projects came to be. This won't be the last time I will attempt to set the record straight in terms of how community projects came to be, nor has that need gone away. We saw that in vivid evidence this evening from the public comments that came in for you. If you don't do it, then those kinds of conversations are going to take place at City Council. And I don't think we have the capacity to take on that additional burden. So I thank you for doing it. Given all of that, though, there has been conversations that have emerged as to whether or not a quote unquote oversight commission should also be involved in making a recommendation regarding what projects should be funded. That intellectually and from a public policy standpoint is a very legitimate question. But the origin of Measure J being involved in making recommendations to City Council does not begin with this particular Measure J Commission. It goes back to the original Measure J Commission. And that is work that was done then. If it's appropriate to consider whether or not to change that in some fashion moving forward, I'm open to that conversation, but it is not going to take away, no matter what we do, the need to have a body and a group that's responsible for fielding the kinds of questions and concerns that you hear from neighbors. Before I hand it off to Councilmember Coors, moving forward, I think everyone on City Council recognizes that we need to do a better job in terms of the communications between our various commissions and councils. I'm dedicated to making sure that we get those communications right. I served on the Planning Commission. I know what it's like to be a commissioner, and it is, frankly, sometimes thankless work. But what matters is when you know you're making a difference for your community. That's why you are in this, is to make a difference for your community. And I greatly appreciate the work you're doing. And we will do a better job of making sure you understand how much we appreciate what you do. Councilmember Coors.
Thank you.
So thank you. And so, hi everyone, Chair Bernstein, Vice Chair Soto, and the rest of the commissioners. So I want to just echo a little bit there, but I'll keep it brief since Mayor Milton really covered it. But I also really want to thank all of you for all of your work. I my first 2 years on council, I was part of the Measure J. Then we had a subcommittee with Council Member Mills. I remember Commissioner Marshall and the meetings we had specifically on the issue of limiting the expectation in the community that all the money was going to community projects, and then that the community projects could get lost in the fire stations, the police station, road repairs. And so at the recommendation of the Measure J Commission, they asked that we limit, but both limit and set aside $1 million a year for community projects of Measure J funds, and that the commission would vet all those projects and also the other vetting they've done on city projects and make recommendations to the council. And I think, as Mayor Middleton alluded, if we had to do that, given the literally 8 to 10 hours a month we meet, it would take a huge amount of time. And so the literally hundreds of hours you all put in is so important and is so appreciated. And it's about the public having an opportunity at a commission level to weigh in, right? Not everyone comes to council. And so that is just a really important part of this process. And from the beginning, Measure J oversight, which was passed by the voters, has been also about overseeing the spending. Not, you don't do an audit. It's always been recommending projects. And sometimes the order of the projects is changed from what council has done, from what staff recommended and Measure J recommended, right? We get advice from both. And that's always been a key part and a really important part of the process. But towards that, I wanted to make sure, because it's a follow-up from our October meeting when city manager and I were here, and we talked about the communication issues, Mayor Middleton, you brought up, and how we better work on that process, that that we're all working in the same direction. And one of the things that I think most excited council when we interviewed for a city manager was Justin Clifton really laying out that he wanted us to get work plans, right? That we're going to prioritize, that we're going to, look out a year at what our agendas look like. Because things come up all the time, but if we add new things constantly, things keep on falling off. And so Tuesday, we're having a study session, and we're hoping to do these monthly now. And it's really going to be focused on the priorities, which council talked about in January at a meeting, in a work plan format, and to get input from the public on those priorities, because there are things that we've talked about wanting to do that will fall off, right? That would not go away, but can't get done in the next year or 18 months. And so the importance of getting input, especially from our commissions on that, is critical. And we haven't seen it yet, but I presume it'll come out tonight. I know staff was still working when I left City Hall today on it. But we're also going to be talking about processes, right? I think we as a city need to do a better job of communication, right? We don't want, and I don't think it ever comes up with Measure J, but with some commissions, they're working on something that is maybe not be a priority and then doesn't then get addressed in a way that they would like to see it. And so it creates frustration. So how we make sure those priorities are set with the input of commissions, and I know all the commissions gave input on priorities to the city manager. So I did want to let you and the public know that is Tuesday. And I really want to encourage people when that report is out to review it. You can feel free to call any of us, email, make public comment at the meeting. But getting input on that from the public is really important. And the commissioners are engaged, on the issues they work on. So hearing from you would be really helpful. And I don't know if the city manager wants to add anything on that, but really do appreciate the countless hours that you've done. And thanks for stepping up a second time, Commissioner Marshall, because I know how much work this is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't have a lot to add. I can certainly answer any questions. We'll be looking at the entire spectrum of role players and decision making when we have this conversation on Tuesday at a fairly high conceptual level. You've probably heard me say before that one of the things that makes this unique, local government, and our kind of decision making, is how participatory it is. And we have residents and we have stakeholders and we have external partners. We have affinity groups, we have commissions, we have staff departments, we have council. Sometimes we have committees of either commissions or of council. So you can just kind of imagine the flow chart of all of those component pieces trying to work together. It's just complicated and more involved than most decision-making models in a business or even a nonprofit setting. So our goal is to clarify the roles and responsibilities. Someone on a commission the other evening called it swim lanes, pick your kind of metaphor or description, but to make sure that each of those component pieces works in conjunction with the other, that they all add value, that we reduce redundancies, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is pretty holistic in that way. The staff report, the written staff report will certainly set that stage. The conversation and the verbal presentation will expand on that and introduce a handful of ideas. I think we've talked about some of them conceptually. So making sure that before council does priority work, that it's always checking in with commissions. If the council then solidifies those priorities, then that feedback gets back to commissions. And that there are some other touch points during the year. I'm not sure how it will work long-term for things like having, say, 2 council members or a mayor and a council member present at each commission meeting, because there are pretty substantial demands on time. But if we can't do that, what can we do to make sure that we make more of the staff liaisons that both are a touch point with council and with me as administrative staff and with commission? So those are the kinds of strategies that we'll be putting together. We are looking across the board as well with commissions. It's even interesting that I still want to say boards and commissions because we call some boards, but I don't know what the difference is between a board and a commission other than they're 2 different names. And so we want to just clean that up if we can. The size of commissions, should they do something to mirror what we've done with council with districts as just one component piece. So there are lots of things like that that we'll probably introduce. And part of that conversation will be how do we loop that back in with the commissions again to get some feedback. So that's what we're going to start Tuesday. I apologize that I know this has been kind of a long plotting process, but we are trying to steer a significant ship, so to speak. And it is a bit slow and iterative, especially as we try to keep momentum with all the things we're doing. So I can answer questions if there are any, but that's what we're attempting to do.
I mean, first of all, I want to thank Mayor Middleton, Councilman Coors, and City Manager Clifton for coming and speaking. We realize things are very busy, and we have this commission, I know in particular, has been pushing for direction and policy and involvement. So we welcome this, and we're I think probably helped instigate or added somewhat to the visioning session and then this study session. So we are excited to hear direction that you will give us. And we don't expect you to come to every single meeting, but we appreciate you coming to this one and definitely hope one or more of you or other council members will come back. Does anybody else have any other questions for the city manager or mayor or councilman? Okay, well, stay as long as, Commissioner Soto?
Yeah, so similarly, I'm very appreciative of Mayor Middleton and Councilmember Coors and City Manager Clifton for coming on and kind of just talking about where we are. It sounds like we are in a readjustment of all Measure J recommendations, both city projects and community initiated projects, or do you see one over the other being kind of priority? I just kind of want to raise that question since we have been so deep in this process of community initiated projects, outreach to the community, and giving updates to applicants. And so if that is part of the reprocess mapping, it'd be great to kind of make that explicit tonight for the people who are attending today and also people who might be viewing. Or do you see it as more of like the general Measure J projects that are kind of city led?
I don't know that it's gotten far enough to say it focuses on either of those or both, right? I think what we've endeavored to do and what we've talked about in the visioning sessions is to examine and look at enabling ordinances, look at activities, see where there's consistency. If there's inconsistency, what do we do? As one example, earlier in the year, we discovered through nobody's fault, but when we looked at the Arts Commission, it was doing some things that weren't outlined in the ordinance. That just happens as kind of decision-making and things change. What they're proposing to do is change the ordinance rather than change actions. Now that will still have to go to council and get approved, but there is no predetermined conclusion about that process. I think we do want some consistency. Whatever happens, I don't anticipate it's going to put the brakes on or reverse things that are already in process. So I don't think there's any worry about lost time and effort that you would get so far down the road and we'd come back and say, sorry, that's scrapped. With something like the CIP that Measure J has already considered, the 5-year CIP, and now we have some additional strategic direction from council, it may be that the combination of those two things is sufficient to do some small revisions and let it go. It could also be that council looks at it and decides to remand it back or to take it from there. So they haven't had an opportunity to even get those kind of thoughts yet. So there is no kind of predetermined that one thing is going to get corrected or changed or not changed. It's really a broader level review that we're just starting at the staff level to look at those enabling ordinances and things like that, and then see as we look across the board what makes sense. And it could be very minor or it could be significant. We just don't know yet.
Okay.
So no reason to stop anything.
So we'll continue with the community initiated project.
Absolutely. Yes, I think you should continue the work you're doing without a doubt. And furthermore, I think if there was something significant, and I don't think this will happen, but let's say there was a change to the way community projects were done. Well, we do these things every year, so we can line that out for a future year. I don't think there'll be any wasted effort or energy for the things Measure J has done before or the things you're doing currently.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Then we are going to move to the welcome comments from the Measure J chair, but since my comments were either that or related to the emergency agenda item, I'm going to start the emergency agenda item 2A with my comments. And I want to just clarify a few things about the Measure J Commission so that everybody understands that we are an advisory commission. We have no authority to disperse or even approve the disbursements or allocation of funds. That's entirely under the authority of the city council and staff. We work very hard to come up with informed recommendations, which council may or may not agree with. In my term as commissioner, that has both have happened. The commission is appointed by the city council and we serve at the pleasure of city council. And when the Measure J tax was passed, it was discussed, the Oversight Commission was formed. In 2015, they created the $1 Million Community Initiated Projects. During the pandemic year, that money was not spent, and in the current year, it's not been spent. There is presumably, but there is no budget for the next 22-23 fiscal year, another $1 million. In a prior Measure J Commission meeting, we asked the city treasurer and finance director if that meant we would have $3 million available. The answer was that probably yes, but again, it would have to go before city council for approval. And so we worked within that framework. When we received the 59 applications, it became very clear that it made sense if there were $3 million available that we consider it for these 59 applications, given how worthy they were. There were 15 of the applications that were removed by city staff for reasons being that they were either grants, sponsorships, existed on tribal land or otherwise did not qualify in any way for Measure J funds. We agreed in this meeting that it would make sense to notify the applicants that those who were rejected, and that happened by city staff. I did offer to help, but the city staff did that. All of the other remaining applications are on it. As to the evaluation of the applications, the evaluation was actually included in the original application that was sent out by the city. It remains in the application and is still available on the city's website. There were 3 commissioners who worked on a subcommittee to come up with that, Commissioner Soto, Commissioner Futterman, and Commissioner Craig, and then the commission reviewed that in this meeting. The evaluation criteria had 9 different points. Whether the project was to make Palm Springs a safe, desirable place to live, work, and visit, whether the project benefited the majority of residents, guests, and/or tourists in our city, whether the project improved the health and safety of our residents of Palm Springs, whether the project promoted the growth of tourism in the city, whether the project provided a benefit to the community over a long period, or can the project be used over a long period of time? Does the project provide a positive return on investment to the city of Palm Springs? Does the project create jobs in the city of Palm Springs? Is the project sustainable, and is the project green? We initially had a rating system. When all the applications came in, it became very clear that it was hard to give an actual number to each one. And so we agreed to take those into consideration and make a recommendation as a commission. In that recommendation, we had 3 options we agreed to do to simplify it. Either yes, move forward with community initiated funding, recommend that it be considered for the regular Measure J funds, or not consider. Then those tallies were then sent to the city staff, who then created a tally sheet and distributed it to the entire commission. It is on this week's agenda. It is posted online, I think, as well as everybody's individual votes. And as a point of fact, I should say the Measure J, goal of the Measure J is to, quote, and you can see this on the city's website, to maintain local community services and revitalize downtown. And part of that, and part of the original Measure J, was that it was a sales tax in which a lot of that tax would be paid by tourists. So the tourism, while not a major, major element, were an element in the application consideration. I should point out that the individual tallies are not yet up on the website, but they will be. I also want to clarify that I joined the Visit Greater Palm Springs Board in November of 2021, and they have not put any proposals before Measure J. I joined the Palm Springs Hospitality Association in January of 2022. I joined their board. They have had no involvement with Measure J until last Thursday morning, when David Feltman, who is also a board member, I believe, or was a guest, I'm not sure, when he asked the Palm Springs Hospitality Association to write a letter of support for the pickleball initiative. At that meeting, I recused myself from the discussion, and I abstained from any voting on whether to write that letter. At our last week meeting, we also had a discussion that Commissioner Marshall sits on the board of the Mizell and cannot participate in any discussions regarding the Mizell. I also want to clarify about the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan draft was sent out by city engineers to then Chair Gazan in March of 2021, another draft in April of 2021, and then what appeared to be the final one in May of 2021. The commission has reviewed and went over it. We did not go over in great detail because we were waiting for priorities, but it is not, it made sense to do a 5-year plan, as we all discussed, because a lot of these projects take up to 5 years to complete. And this would enable funds to be reserved over time so that when they would actually be needed, and also to look out so that we could see what projects would be needed out in advance. Again, I want to clarify that we have asked all city council members in writing and in these meetings to attend our meetings. We've invited them multiple times, probably to the point where the city manager and staff are getting annoyed with us, but we continue to stress that they should be involved in our meetings. And again, I want to point out, we have no authority to disperse or even approve allocation of funds, and that's entirely under the authority of city council and staff. I want to add one more thing before we go in. I chose to run for city council, understanding that there would be a tax. The commissioners on this commission, I find to be, I know, are intelligent, dedicated, hardworking individuals. I want to apologize here because I can't speak to you as a group outside of this meeting, that you are attacked in the process, and I'm especially upset that the entire Measure J was attacked. This has been a huge benefit to our city. And eventually it will sunset, and we need people to understand the importance of it. And I apologize for having your integrity impugned. I don't know if that's the end of my statement. I don't know if Commissioner Craig, you wanted to go to your agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to bring up a few things. This is the third commission that I'm sitting on. I was also the president of the Police Advisory Board under 4 chiefs. And I was Senior Inspiration Citizen of the Year in 2016. I pride myself on my integrity and my honesty and my work. When I was interviewed for this commission, one of the council members at that time asked me if I could tell them something they didn't know about me. I answered the question. I was also told that if I would like to consider still remaining as the chair of Parks and Recreation, which I'm very proud that we did the first pickleball court, excuse me. And I said, no, my interest is to be on Measure J exclusively. When the comments were made by a council member that to me, it infringed on our integrity and our honesty and our sincerity, there was implications of improprieties in regard to favoritism. I personally resent it. And as part of this body, I would like to propose that unless that person can bring documentation to back up the statements that were made, that we receive a letter of apology from that member of the council to this commission, and that this be done and be considered by this body to them, to the city council. But that should go to the member of the council that made the comments about us as individuals, not as individuals, I'm sorry I said that, as a body.
Commissioner Soto?
Thank you, Chair. And it was a very comprehensive explanation of our process and kind of how we tried to stay productive and helpful, especially in these past couple of years of COVID, as the Measure J budget has kind of been on hold. Around some of the questions of our application and intentions with the community initiated projects, as the chair mentioned, I was part of the subcommittee that made the application with my colleagues, Commissioner Craig and Commissioner Butter. And we worked very collaboratively with staff who so graciously gave so much of their time. And I'd be happy to clarify any specific questions about our process of the development of the application, how and why we did the outreach as we did, kind of the timeline around the evaluation, and really what our goals are moving forward. There seems to be concern with not a lot of specificity. So I would welcome that conversation and I'd be happy to be a part of it. But yeah, just for the integrity of this process, it's so important that we answer these questions very publicly. We hear these questions publicly, we answer them very publicly, because we have tried to make the Measure J Commission an accessible body to the community of Palm Springs. And I'd love to kind of have that conversation.
Mayor Middleton has to leave. So thank you. Did anyone else want to say anything? Thank you, Mayor Middleton.
I do.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes. I just want to back that up. I'm kind of torn with Sid's recommendation, to be honest, but having been on there before and being on it again, I really felt offended on the questioning of the integrity of this commission. So I don't know how we respond. Is it one of those things is maybe best to just leave it alone? But on the other hand, we need to look at sunset coming up. And I think it's got to be important that the community understands what we've done, why we've done it. Anyway, I kind of want to say I'm offended, having spent 6 years, almost 7, on my first round, and I see no reason to question without being very specific about what they're complaining about. So to go along with Craig, I think somehow we need to address this. I'm done.
Any other comments? Commissioner Federer?
Yes, I would like to say that the application that our subcommittee worked on was from the original application that this commission had used many years ago. We took it and we brought it more up to date to be more inclusive of our community. That's different than it was 10 years ago. And I agree with Co-Chair that we're open to discussion. It's online, it was available, it's very clear. My personal feeling is, I think you made it very clear how this commission works, how we do our work, and who we are accountable for. And I think we've taken a lot of our time tonight that we should be looking at projects and how we're to move forward. I am offended. It blanketed all of us. I don't think Chairman should apologize to us. You're a very credible person and you've led this commission in a very, very professional way. I would like to see us move on, let it fall where it may be. I think the public has heard us tonight and it's time that we get down to our business this evening. We could talk this for the next hour or so. We've got work to do in front of us tonight. We have people here to speak to us tonight. So I personally would like to say, let's move on now. That's all.
Okay. Did anybody else want to speak? Commissioner Robin?
Yeah, I'll just add, I think that Commissioner Federer summarized it perfectly. As offended or as disappointed as we all are and all should be, we as a body have the benefit of a great deal of daylight on our process and have taken painful steps throughout to be open and explicit and accessible, as the term was used earlier. If anyone has any questions or concerns, all they need to do is participate or play it back.
Well, am I correct that all of our meetings and minutes and agendas are posted online, including the videos of the Zooms?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Gazan?
Well, seeing everyone has spoken, I guess I'll open my big mouth. Yeah, I'm blown away by what happened last Thursday, as I'm sure everyone was. If you look back at this commission, you know, they learned a hard lesson when Measure J Commission first started, and they were overwhelmed with recommendations. So much so that they decided for several years not to engage the public per se for outreach on community projects. First of all, community projects didn't exist with the very first Measure J Commission. It came out of, hey, we want, as Lisa Middleton had said earlier, that certain projects that the public is looking for, we should really support and get behind. Some of that was just even simple road repairs around the city. And for several years, to avoid maybe being overwhelmed by a lot of input, we went to other commissions, 1PS to get input, which is sort of an aggregator of all of the community of Palm Springs, to look for ideas for that little $1 million to spend per year. This past year, we decided to open it up to the public, and that kind of puts us out there. And I was shocked that, you know, you would think you would maybe get some criticism from the public, but to get it from someone on council who should know better was really quite unbelievable. We have not gotten any criticism from the public. The public have put forth about 59 different projects, and they've done it respectfully, and we've reviewed those respectfully. And to kind of get that feedback from someone from the city who has never attended one of our meetings, and would also not only attack the commission, but we don't do these meetings in a bubble. These meetings involve and have involved for years the city manager, the director of finance, the assistant city manager, engineering staff. We look to them for recommendations. Then we send our ideas and recommendations to council. So it's not only a bit of a slap in the face to our commission, you are also insulting and putting in question the integrity of staff at City Hall that works very, very hard. And by the way, takes time out of their busy schedule, as they're very overworked, to sit and be a part of these commission meetings. So I think that's important. I'm proud of everything we've done. I've been on this commission for 5 years. We've done everything with integrity, and with some of the new members over the past year or two, you know, we've really done a lot to try to reach out to the community, to make the community heard, and we've done that, and I feel that it's been very successful. So that is it.
Thank you. On this topic, did anyone else want to speak? I'm not sure if I see Dennis Woods, Councilman Woods is here. I'm not sure how this works if we've already had 2 council people speak. Can you answer that, city manager? Is this?
I may have to double check. I think the strict policy is not to have a quorum of council at any one time. So I think the fact that we only have 2 on presently and only had 2 on previously is okay. But if you give me a second, I can double check.
Okay. Are there any other commissioners that wanted to speak on this? I guess everyone spoke. I don't know that I'm gonna just wait for, I guess, the city manager first. On this item, did anyone want to move forward with Commissioner Craig's request? Again, I'm going to say I appreciate that. I actually will agree with Commissioner Futter that, you know, we have spent a lot of time, and this hopefully will go. This was I don't think this was really intended on an attack on the commission. So it probably is, but it was. So I'm not sure whether, I think probably we should go on with our work.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not able to reach the city attorney at this point, but I believe we have had other instances, at least at council committee level, where the line was pretty clear not to have 3 in at a time, but that 2 is okay.
Okay, so Councilman Woods, did you want to speak?
Certainly. Thank you very much. You know, there was, I'm sorry if it came across as a attack. It was not meant to be that whatsoever. There were just, we had a couple of neighborhood meetings and we didn't have the information in those neighborhood meetings. The information wasn't online, you know, and there was just a variety of things that I just want to clear. And I think I said very clearly, all I wanted to do was if people had that perception, was to basically correct that as quickly as we can as we're in this process so that we don't jeopardize the process. That was my whole intent, nothing more, nothing less. Thank you.
Is there anything that is not online yet, Evelyn, besides what you just mentioned, the individual votes on things?
No, everything that's gone to the commission for review has been posted online. The votes, the tallies, the totals are online, as well as, actually, the applications are not all online because they have phone numbers and personal information, but each individual application has not been posted online.
The application summaries and the application form itself is online.
That's right.
Is there anyone else would like to say anything before we move on to the budget update? Commissioner
I-
Soto?
I guess do we want, beyond just looking at the documents and videos and Zooms of our previous meetings, like, I don't know if we want to if Councilmember Woods wants to send XYZ questions by such and such date. I just don't know if there are questions and concerns. I mean, people are welcome to provide public comment at our Measure J meeting, again, third Thursday of the month. But other than that, I'm just unclear as to what the council member needs to feel like he has his questions answered.
I think that's a question for you, Councilman Woods.
You know, I don't have any real questions. I just, as I said, getting all this stuff up online, making sure there's no conflicts, ensuring the public of all of that is really my goal with this. Nothing more, as I said. So if we can get it all up in line, which I think we've already started, I think the grading sheet was online for this meeting, which is a tremendous achievement over what we've been doing, because you've been working on that for quite some time. We're on the right path. So thank you. And again, it was not in any way intended to be offensive. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything? We spent an hour and 10 minutes on this.
Yeah.
So I would just want to make sure that everybody is aware that on our agenda that is posted online, there are links to everything when the agenda is posted. So if you don't see it as an attachment, there is a link that will show everything that is sent out to the commissioners. And I want to also be clear that nothing is sent from the commission to the whole group. That is a document that comes from Evelyn or Nancy in some cases. Is there anything, I'm going to ask staff, is there anything that I gave in the summary that was incorrect as to how we operate? Okay. No. All right, well, let's move on to the budget update. And thank you, Mr. Councilman Woods, for attending your first Measure J meeting.
Sorry, Chair. I was just wondering, do we want to use our last time to hear from the library? Or how do we want to kind of deal with that, since we are?
I would suggest that we do. Nancy?
I apologize. I'm having some technical issues. I'm on my laptop and I didn't bring my charger. I usually use my laptop at home. So I have about 3 minutes left before I disappear. I'm going to log back in. You just see me and I can hear you and I can see you, but you can't see me. So if it's okay with you, I'd just like to give you very quick budget update.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. January 31st of 2022, we're at 7.8 million compared to 2021 at 6.4 million. That is a 1.4 million increase over the prior year. The audit has been completed. It is going to the next council meeting. I will update actuals for the March meeting. Does anybody have questions?
Nope, I think that's great. I think it's good news for Measure J funds in general and for the revenue, and this will be good news for eventually when we have the discussions on the regular Measure J funds. I know there's a lot of need for expenses, so this is great news for our city.
Great. Naomi,
Thank you.
you have a question?
No, that was my okay sign.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so I would suggest that we do invite the move on. Did anyone have anything for Nancy before she goes? Before we move on? Okay, so I'm gonna suggest we have Jeannie Case and Ed McBride to talk about the library. And just as a reminder, I'm sorry we kept you waiting so long. We did have originally funds set aside for the library pre-pandemic. Some of which was unallocated. There was a 1.4 million, which was then put on hold. You then presented this. There is something in the 5-year plan, which is posted on as part of the May 28th agenda that you can see there. But I know you also put a community initiated project. So the commission thought it would be very useful for you to present the general library plan, so that as we make recommendations, we understand the whole scope of what you're looking at. So thank you for being here, and thank you for waiting.
Chair Bernstein and commissioners, thank you for having us tonight. And it's a real pleasure to be here and to be able to speak with you guys. Tonight, I'm going to be doing the presentation, and Jeannie is across town and she's going to be clicking through this. So bear with us as we do this through modern technology. My name is Ed McBride. I am currently the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. I'm also a resident of Palm Springs and a business owner here in Palm Springs. Some of you may not know this, but by education, I am a librarian, and was a librarian for almost 40 years of my professional career. So I love libraries. I've worked in libraries. I've worked around libraries. And then I got into the hair business. I won't go into that tonight, but it's a story that's to be told over beer somewhere. But libraries are such an important part of our community, and I have been on the Board of Trustees now for 5.5 years. My term will be up at the end of June. But I'm not going away. I plan on being a huge supporter of libraries. So tonight, what Jeannie and I wanted to do was to answer your questions as best we can through a slideshow, and then have time for you to ask questions of us about the priorities of the library. So Jeannie, first slide. What I would start with, as an archivist and as a librarian, we always cite our source, right? So I thought you might get a tickle out of, if you look at the image here, this is the original brochure that was used for our community to inform everyone about Measure J and the importance it was to our community. And what I wanted to note is, if you look real closely, out of those 4 pictures, 2 of them are libraries. So our community for sure connected Measure J to libraries. And I think that it's been a part of the expectations that the library was as an important infrastructure as anything in our community. And there have been funds spent on the library that we were very thankful for and we don't want to forget. So back in 2013, 2014, there was $150,000 given to the main library for planning. There was $47,000 given to computers. Now, I can't promise you those computers are still around because that was a long time ago. But we also spent $782,446 for the Wellwood Murray Memorial renovation. That building, I think we all agree, is a critical part of the history of our city. And an important monument to our city, and it's one of the library facilities. So far to date, now someone can correct my numbers, but $980,246 of Measure J funds have been spent on the public library so far. Next slide. Now, I have formed this, and I know we're all kind of getting weary of this, but I want to talk pre-COVID, and then I'm going to talk about post-COVID. Pre-COVID, the Library Board of Trustees paid at that time for a community-involved meeting at the convention center We hired consultants to come in, and we felt it was important at that particular time in our history that our strategic plan was dated and needed to be updated, looking forward to where we would be going. So in January 2019, we filled up one of the larger meeting rooms at the convention center with community members, and we also had at that time Council Member Middleton, Council Member Holstage. We had the city manager, Dr. Reddy, was there. It was a wonderful meeting where so many people spoke up about what they would like to see from our library going forward. And about that time, and in that meeting, it was really clear the citizens want to see something with the library. They want to see a new library. And it's been talked about, and we've had plans, and we've done a lot of false starts, but they really want to see something with the library. So the city council responded in August 2019 to have a committee formed that I chaired. Some of you actually were on that committee, where we examined the possible location. Should we move it? It was a question that came up in that meeting. We looked at 5 possible sites over about 3 months and evaluated those. We all came to the conclusion with much community input that our citizens love the library in Sunrise Park. That's where they wanted to stay, and that's where they wanted to be. Now, I want to note that it was not determined what that building will look like necessarily, but it was determined that they want us to stay there. So that's a message that we've been committed to. The other thing too is, as Chair Bernstein mentioned, there was $623,000 to be exact, that a former Metro J commissioner came to the trustees and said, this is money that has been left over and we want you guys to use it. What do you want to use it for? And we thought, okay, where can we go with that money? And we decided, we being, by the way, the trustees, that we would use $100,000 to extend the contract of our current consultants, who are library consultants, to begin the planning program part of a new library. And what that really means is it's having the community engaged to tell us what that needs to go into that library or to that building. So it's planning it from the inside out. The other part of it is, at that time on the Board of Trustees, who is now chair of the Planning Commissioner, Trustee Wimrick, had an idea. She called me and she said, let's go look at that building that's all boarded up next to the library. And we found out that it was part of the library. It's called the J.C. Fry Building. And we went over one day, got in there, and it's been used for a storage room for our Friends organization. And Jeannie, and just in a conversation, we came up with the idea that we could remodel that building and build in that building meeting facilities, which was very high on the priority of the public. We could put a bookstore for our friends in there. We could put a new kitchen. We could turn that into something that could be used on our campus and to relieve the meeting room requirements. Now, that was a quote, a roundabout price that City Hall gave us. And at that time, I'm sorry, I'm not recalling who consulted with that, but it was consulted with the city, and they said that's probably about what it would take to redo that building. And then it became evident to us that what other purpose this building could use is that during the main library renovation or construction, it could serve as an outlet to library service to our community, guess where, in Sunrise Park, and allow us to extend service there. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Now, here's the answer to your questions about what are your priorities now? We've gone through this horrible epidemic. It's impacted all of us in our community. Well, our first question is, where's our $623,000? We would sure love to have it back. Now, I understand tonight this group is not to tell us where we can find that money, but it sure would be nice if we could get some support and find out at least, is that money, and let me literally, this is a story that the day we were shut down, the community, the contracts for all of these things were sitting on the city manager's desk to execute. And it was frozen along with all of your budgets. So we all it just let us all be very disappointed that we had worked so hard to get us that far. and the check just went through our fingers. We never saw the check. We never even saw the contract. Now, so I put that in there, Jess, but it is really, I think, important for you guys as we go through the rest of this presentation to keep that in mind. So in April of 2021, you guys were just talking about this. I listened to the Measure J proceedings where you guys were beginning to come back alive and look at your priorities in your budget. And I will tell you, it was with great joy that I saw that the library did not fall out of that list. We were still prominently in there, and we were very thankful for that. So let's talk about this year. There is nothing in the budget or your budget for the library at this particular time. And when we saw the Measure J community grants announced, the Board of Trustees, the Friends, and the Library Foundation, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, came together and said, we've got to apply for this money. And even if it takes some of our own money, wouldn't it be great to at least go back to the community and say, we are committed to showing a small step of taking something and putting it into the main library to serve our community. So when you read that application, I hope that you now understand that there's a lot of hard work behind that application, a lot of history, and a lot of community support so that we can do something for our library. And we sure would love Measure J to award us something and be that fourth partner. Year 2 in the budget, and by the way, let me go back here. Our priorities are your priorities. We haven't changed. We have aligned our expectations to what you guys are seeing and what you guys are hopefully moving forward. In year 2, there was $100,000 for planning. And we made the assumption that this is now beginning to tell us our question number 1 is, where did our $600,000 go? It probably was reallocated and pushed into future years. So we understand that's probably it to answer that. Next slide, please. And the 5-year plan, year 3, there for the first time appears $2 million for the main library renovation. Now, I want to say that it was our instruction to the trustees from City Council was that we want to be careful that it might be a renovation. At that time, we had a City Council member who suggested we start all over again. So those questions really haven't been, I think, decided. That's where we were hoping to be by now, but those are still questions. And then finally, the $480,000 for the Fry building renovation. By the way, the picture you see there, that is the Fry building. It's on our campus. I call it our campus. And we envision that being totally remodeled. It's a beautiful mid-century building, and it would be an extension of the library program. And if you could imagine, when you pull into our parking lot, it's on the left, and then the library is on the right. So it is a great building, and I think great potential. In year 4, another $4 million. In year 5, another $4 million. So the plan was that this money would start coming to us so that hopefully by the year 2025, 26, we have turned the ground. We are working on something happening with the main library, and we have our other facilities all ready and they're all done. Next slide, Jeannie. Now here's something that has recently developed that is worth noting, and we wanted to share with you all 2 really important things. The first thing, the California State Library has announced an infrastructure grant. They have over $439 million to give out to libraries. The highest is $10 million that we potentially could apply for and use the Measure J budget as the matching funds that's required. I can tell you from my own experience of working with the California State Library, they love projects like this. They love to see their investment in community libraries and make them stronger. Now, they don't want to pay for the pretty things. They want to pay for the things that make that facility strong and worthwhile for a long investment. We really, as a city, cannot let this opportunity slip through our hands. $10 million is a lot of money that will help us do a lot when it comes to brick and mortar for whatever building we go with. And then finally, the trustees, which I chair, the Friends, which have been such generous partners. They provide so many things to our community, and our foundation, which over the last, during the COVID shutdown, They've been working very hard to raise money, and they've
Ed?
raised about 200,000. Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna interrupt, because we only have a couple minutes left,
Sure.
so.
This is my last slide, I promise. This is it. This is my last point. So clearly, we're here tonight to assure you our priorities match yours, and we really look forward to the partnership. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
So
sir.
is the 10 million, is it, you would have to, city would still have to spend 10 million to get that other 10 million?
Yes, sir. It is matching from the state. That's correct.
So, but we couldn't spend 5 and get 5 from them and get to your 10 million goal?
Well, the $10 million is the maximum they'll give any single library. Now, Jenny, you can correct me on that, but if we had 5 million, applied for 5 million, then we would get to 10 million. You're correct. But we're asking that, 10 million is a lot of money if we could match the 10 million. Right. You're correct.
Okay, but you don't know what necessarily you would do with that extra other 10 million. Yeah.
Well,
We have to justify what we're asking for, so we're working on the list right now, and the grant's due March 21st. So yeah, we're evaluating what we can ask for, and then essentially do the sum and divide it in half and match.
Okay.
I think another answer to that question, Jeffrey, is that if we know the city money will go for infrastructure and go for a building, this would just give us some more money to make sure that we whatever infrastructure investment we make is more there. This can't go towards furniture and books and that sort of stuff. That will have to be, well, we're ready to raise that if we have to with the foundation and the friends and trustees.
Thank you. And Joel, can you confirm, are these funds still in the current 5-year plan that's being presented or shown to city council?
Well, yeah, it has not changed. It's still a different one. We haven't revised, as the city manager stated, that, things could move around, but not drastically, but it's still programmed in the finance.
Okay. Well, I believe, and I don't want to speak, that we supported this being included. Everything did get delayed from everything with Measure J.
Right.
So we had actually we had also put 1.4 million aside right before, I think, for when we understood the plans. So I think as it stands in the 5-year plan, when we saw it the first time, we expressed support for it. Did any other commissioners want to speak on this? I think one of the Commissioner Federer.
I support this wholeheartedly. We have enough plans, as Ed and Jeannie and I know. I really think we have to move forward to give the library what they've asked for years and years and years, however we do it. So I give the library 100% of my support. It is a major community activity, and I'm delighted you've all come to reason that Sunrise Park is the place it should be. What the building is going to be, what my preferences are about that. So if there's any way we could get that kind of money from the Library Association and support it, can we budget that out like Joel has done? Maybe not all 10 million now, but plug it in for the next few years. Joel, could we do that? And would that help you get your funding?
The grant obligations, if we do get the grant, we are required to spend the money by 2026. So there's time.
Okay, well, presumably this will go before city council. I believe, as the 5-year plan stood, it didn't actually use all of the Measure J funds anyway, and we supported it. I don't know, we actually took an official vote of support, but I don't know if we want to do this. So the question really then was, how does that 100,000 come out of the community initiated projects? And my guess is that city council might want to put everything into the regular Measure J funds, but I can't speak for them. Did any other commissioners want to comment on this? It's now 7:03, so Commissioner Robin.
Yeah, I have a question and a suggestion for the Measure J Commission. Question for the library friends. Sorry for the pun. For our friends who are here visiting from the library and friends of the library, the application that you have in for the match, does it require that you make a commitment in your application that there actually is designated funding from the city now, or can that just be a subsequent condition on receipt of funds?
It is, and there are two things that have to happen. The city has to apply for the grant. So in order to do that, we have to take that to city council to get authorization, knowing full well that whatever we're applying for, they're committed. It's optional to have the resolution that says we've got the money set aside now. If you do get the grant, it's a requirement.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's possible for this to send this to submit this with hope rather than with certainty of funding from the city side. Okay. Good. Thank you. And the suggestion that I have for Measure J, and when I hear pickleball in a different setting, I have the same reaction, which is I think without getting into subcommittees, my own personal view, without getting into subcommittees, I think it would be productive for not only the library, but also Parks and Recs to have a liaison from Measure J to just have regular dialogue on a less formal basis, and certainly more frequently than once a month. And in the same breath, I think Commissioner Futterer would be a tremendous liaison for the library, given the knowledge base she already has. But I'm suggesting this with the sense that at least one person knowing a lot more than most of us do on the day-to-day thinking of the library, and in the same vein, the Parks and Recs, which is a frequent visitor to our window, having that kind of information in one, maybe more people on a subcommittee basis would be productive.
Okay. I do know that city manager has raised questions about whether any commission should have subcommittees. But I am happy to, I know that they're having their session next week. So prior to that, I could suggest whether it would be helpful for us to have liaisons in the different ones.
Yeah,
but I want to be careful about anything conflicting with what their plans are, but just add it as a suggestion that if it would make sense.
Good. Yeah, just say it one more time. For my own personal preference, a subcommittee gets very heavy and unwieldy quickly, in my experience, and a one-person pipeline can be very efficient.
Okay.
But I have a question here. This is a big capital project with the library. This has been years and years and years and years ad nauseum. We always think I'm going to be dead before we ever see this happen. So do me a favor. But you have asked under community projects, Jeannie, for a room revision. That's the project of our small project we're looking at for you. And do we give you that money or do we not, or recommend that be spent? That is not a part of this bigger discussion that you presented tonight. Am I right, Ed? I mean, you have a small community project here, and we've had a larger discussion about year-long planning for some kind of either upgrading the existing, and you know where my ideas. So I want to be clear what we're looking at tonight for you, or sometime in the future.
Yes, when the community grant opportunity was presented and we heard about it, we felt like this was an opportunity for us to go back to that. If you remember, we had money that we were going to try to create some meeting space in the main library because the community keeps asking for it. So we thought, oh, here's another opportunity for us to find some money through maybe Measure J to take a current facility and create this meeting room. So I think I'm answering your question is that, no, I heard for my invitation was to talk about that project, but to also share with you all our long-term priorities so that as you're looking at it, all this makes sense. Now, the logical question might be, Why do you want to do something to that current building? Well, that current building renovation or whatever it might be, it's 5 or 6 years ago. You will be there to cut the ribbon, Linda, I promise.
I don't know.
I'll be there with you holding. We might be in wheelchairs, but we sure as hell are going to be there. So to answer your question, we feel like it tells the community that we are investing something.
Okay.
Our support groups are willing to write checks to help make this happen. So it's not that if we don't get enough, we'll find the money to make this happen. So
Okay.
yes, I think that you heard us loud and clear. Did I
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think since we're not going to have time to talk about any community initiated projects, but we now have a lot of information that was extremely helpful and really, really useful to hear. And it's
May
exciting.
I ask a question?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, having started with Measure J, and yes, I think it is a priority that we need to address. One of the questions that always came up is, what is the future of a library? I mean, it may not be what we grew up with. Have they updated the plans to get us back into or caught up with the current media, computers, whatever?
Sure.
Yeah.
Commissioner Marshall, if I could tell you, if I got $1 for every time I've answered that question, I would be a millionaire and I would donate the money to the library. It's as a librarian. So that you remember, I mentioned that there is a study and a plan that libraries do, which is called a planning. So we take those very topics and we listen to the community. And yes, books are a technology that are still used in our library. But if our community says we want an archive of gay, lesbian history, or we want a gallery, or whatever we might want as a community, that's fed into what the library is no longer a place for books. It is for community meetings. It's for a lot of things. So to answer your question, that's all part of the planning process where we listen to what the community wants. We also have consultants that are nationally known who say libraries are moving in this direction. You need to be going in that direction. So yes, we are listening to the current technology of what's needed for a library.
That's what I want to know. And I will add, just for the rest of the council, when I was on there, I think it's really smart for us to look how we can match or get these matching funds.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, if we can double our impact, I think that's a great idea. So we need to take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. I hope I answered your questions. I'm always available to come and answer questions. I love doing that up for the library, and the library community appreciates everything you guys are doing. And we know that this is gonna happen. We are gonna have, I will tell you, I wish that the mayor was still here, because she told me one time, we need a world-class library for a world-class city. And that's something that we will sure work hard for. So thank you.
So I just quickly, because we gotta, I know staff is already overtime, past the time now, so I want to wrap it up. So you have only till March 21st to be able to do this, right?
Yes.
So obviously we don't have time to meet again. So I think what would be, if the commission, that perhaps we just, I don't know if we want to take any action, or if we want to let the, give our support behind the city getting behind what it takes to get this grant. We could also do that in a separate letter.
Yeah, I think I think a motion, maybe not a motion, or a letter of support to the council that you think this is a great idea. It's going before the city council on March 10th.
So we won't be able to meet or discuss it before then. So
and it's all their
meeting?
decision. So they can budget that money out of their own budget. They can borrow the money. They could do a variety of different things to use. They can do community fundraising, but they just need to show a commitment that they will get the money.
You need a motion?
yeah.
Yeah. Then I
Do
make
they
a
have to have
motion.
a predetermined amount of money? I'm a little confused.
I think we would have to leave it that there is a potential $10 million grant, And they obviously they're going into their study session, so we're not gonna have time to give them a formal recommendation before it, but we would encourage them to do what they need to do to apply, to get some or all of that $10 million.
Yeah.
That's how I would phrase it.
And this would come out of our regular Measure J funds, not community projects.
Yes.
Correct.
And shoot, I had other questions. I just flew out of my head. Go ahead.
Well, if I may, I was processing this, that we're let me try and speak and edit at the same time. That as far as a motion goes, the description that we've received for the upcoming application that needs to be presented to the city council includes funding needs that are generally consistent with what we've included in the CIP. And the body of the commission continues to be supportive of the long-term investment by the city via Measure J to the goals of this renovation of the library.
I'd agree with that. I would add to that we feel an urgency to meet this
Okay,
grant.
so I'm not sure that we can actually make a motion, given that this wasn't agendized as such. It was a presentation. So, I mean, we can reach this consensus, and it would be in the minutes that we have reached, that we would encourage the city to move forward.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But, and I would ask that everyone just be sure that is in the minutes. And I can notify separately city council that this was in the minutes. Is that appropriate?
Can we have a special short meeting just to get this done before the 10th of March?
So I'm going to weigh in. Janine, correct me if I'm wrong. The Measure J, really, your request, really, you're not really making a request today. You were just presenting the money has always been in the Measure J's projects to look ahead, and I actually memorialized that by putting it in the CIP. So. Yeah. We're gaining any, and maybe I was speaking out of turn. The commission is not gaining anything by trying to make another meeting or commit or send a letter to the council. I think the council is well aware of what the library needs, and with us presenting our staff report, we will get their approval to commit city funds, either Measure J or regular funds for it. So I don't think you guys are gaining anything by taking any actions today.
Okay.
Right, Joel, and Commissioner Bernstein, I appreciate the time that we were able to give a presentation, and we really, it's not, like Joel said, it's not mandatory or necessary for you to have any special meetings or do any special things for this. It will just be an application to and with the
okay. Well, we hope it goes through.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for letting us speak here.
And with that, it is now 7:17, so I'm afraid we're going to have to end. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion?
Or John, we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, this meeting is now adjourned at 7:17 p.m. Thank you, Evelyn and Chris.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.